Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys at Magic. This is Hunter and Shane. Say what up, Shane.
What's up, nerds?
We are back this time. Shane is going to be taking us through a $100 upgrade to the Divine Convocation Precon Commander deck from the latest set, March of the Machine. So, we've given you $100, Shane. I'm very excited to see where this deck goes. Can we talk a little bit about the Face Commander and what you're doing with the deck?
Of course, the face commander is Kasala, the Broken Halo. They are 3, a blue, a red, and a white for a 5/4 flying vigilance haste. They also have Convoke. Just a quick reminder of what Convoke does. Your creatures can help you cast this spell. Each creature you tap while casting this pays for 1 colorless or 1 mana of the creature's color. They also say whenever you cast another spell that has Convoke, scry 2, then draw a card. And that card seemed pretty good. Seems fun. But the secondary commander caught my eye, and I'm I'm stoked on the second commander, man. The second commander is Saint Traft and Rem Karolus. They are a blue, a red, and a white for a 3/4. And they say when Saint Traft becomes tapped, create a 1/1 red human creature token. If this is the first time this ability is resolved this turn, if it's the second time, create a 1/1 blue spirit creature token with flying. And if it's the third time, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. They also say when you cast a spell that has Convoke, untap Saint Traft and Rem. So that means they will be able to pay for all your Convoke spells. When the Convoke spell resolves, this card will untap, letting you then tap it again for another mana. Also, it'll be creating those tokens, which immediately can help you tap for Convoke because Convoke does not care if the creature is summoning sickness. This card does a lot.
Yeah, the ability to untap itself and then continue to create just a bunch of tokens. That's going to make your Convoke deck go bananas.
Bananas, dude.
All right. Well, if you're going Saint Traft and Rem Karolus, what are we adding to the deck?
I took a little page out of your book, and every time you make deck upgrades, you like to go through the new set and see what fun toys might fit perfectly in this deck. So I did the same thing. So first up, I found a new battle that I thought would be perfect in this deck. Invasion of Segovia. It is 2 and a blue for a battle that starts at 4 defending counters. It says when Invasion of Segovia enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 blue Kraken creature tokens with trample. And when it's defeated, you get Cadis, Sea Tyrant of Segovia. It is a 3/3 serpent that says non-creature spells you cast have Convoke. It also says at the beginning of your end step, untap up to 4 target creatures. That's exactly what your deck wants to do. So now any non-creature spells that don't have Convoke in this deck, they just have Convoke.
Yeah, that is a very strong creature when you defeat that battle. It goes perfectly in this deck.
And I mean, even the front side giving you some blue Krakens that can tap and help pay for more things. It's all around good.
Yeah, and if you could pump those Krakens up, they got trample.
Yes, sir. The next thing I wanted to add in here was Zephyr Singer. It is 2, a blue and a blue for a 3/4 Siren Pirate. They have Convoke. They also have Flying and Vigilance. And it also says when Zephyr Singer enters the battlefield, put a flying counter on each creature that convoked it. So all the things that are going to help pay for this card now get a counter that says flying, not just flying till end turn. That's great.
Yeah, it seems really strong.
And then the last card I wanted to throw in here from the new set is City on Fire. It is a whopping 5 and 3 red pips for an enchantment that has Convoke, so it's a little easier to cast. And it says if a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage instead. So I get that it's a pretty high CMC, but with the amount of tokens and things we're going to be producing, it should be fairly easy to pay with the Convoke. And then now everything you're doing is dealing triple the amount of damage. Your opponents are not going to want this card to stay around.
Yeah, City on Fire seems absolutely bananas to get triple damage.
Yeah. Just
Man,
everything attacking, everything's great.
if Zephyr Stinger comes in and gets flying and just fly over and do triple damage, that's gonna suck.
So yeah, we got some fun toys from the new set, man.
Absolutely, I love those things from the new set. But what are we getting some stuff from older sets?
So I went through and looked at things that just had Convoke, and I found that this card is perfect. Benny Brax, Zoologist. 3 and a white for a 3/2 Elf Druid with Convoke. And it says at the beginning of each end step, If you created a token this turn, draw a card. Well, with Saint Traft and Rem, we're hopefully going to be creating a token on each turn. So now we're just going to be drawing cards.
Yeah, that is a really, really, really synergetic card.
These next set of cards that we added in all kind of care about being tapped or untapped. And the first is Drum Bellower. 2 and a white for a 2/1 flying spirit that says untap all creatures you control during each player's untap step. So now all the creatures that you tapped to convoke on your turn will be untapped again to convoke on another turn or up for blocks. This card goes crazy in this deck, dude. The next is Stony Brook Schoolmaster. It is 2 and a white for a 1/2 Merfolk Wizard that says whenever Stony Brook Schoolmaster becomes tapped, you may put a 1/1 blue Merfolk Wizard creature token into play. So it's kind of the same thing as your commander. When it becomes tapped, it's creating you another token that you can tap with then later. Seems pretty good.
Yeah, man. All these synergies of just convoking
Energies.
and making more tokens is crazy.
Hell yeah. And this next one's a little different, but similar to Stony Brook. We have Daring Thief. 2 and a blue for a 2/3 human rogue. It says whenever Daring Thief becomes untapped, you may exchange control of target non-land permanent you control and target permanent an opponent controls that shares a card type with it. So when this guy gets untapped, you can then maybe say, you know what, I like your creature. You can take my token, I'll take your creature. Or, you know, I'm done with this artifact. I'm going to take the artifact that you really care about and give you this artifact I don't care about. I can just go start stealing all your opponent's stuff.
Yeah, you could just be like, here's a 1/1, I'll take your commander.
Yeah.
It's
Super
pretty good.
good.
Yeah. All right, what else creatures we add into this deck?
Well, we do want to be caring about creating tokens in this deck. So this next group is all going to be creating tokens for us. First up, we have Third Path Iconoclast. It is a blue and a red for a 2/1 human monk. It says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token. Pretty straightforward, pretty great. Another one is Young Pyromancer, 1 and a red for a 2/1 human shaman. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 red elemental creature token. More things to start paying with Convoke. And lastly, we're adding in Monastery Mentor, 2 and a white for a 2/2 human monk. They have prowess, and it also says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess. So we're just making all the tokens that can then tap and help us pay for all our Convoke cards. This is great.
Yeah, man, I like how each one is different. Like Young Pyromancer makes red, Monastery Mentor makes white, Third Path makes colorless, but still all really important when it comes to convoking.
Very true.
So that was the creatures. What other spells are we adding into the deck?
We're going to throw in some spicy stuff. And the first one I want to talk about is Jeskai's Ascendancy. It is a blue, a red, and a white for an enchantment that says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Untap those creatures. It also says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. So once again, when you play non-creature spells, your team gets a little bigger. They get untapped. You can tap them again with Convoke. This is great.
Yeah, man, Jeskai Ascendancy seems really good in your deck. You basically you don't even have to touch your mana. You can just
Nope.
tap all your creatures down for the convoke cost. When you do, they re-untap you if you have anything else in your hand. It's just basically free spells.
Yeah, I'm really finding that this Convoke deck, it shouldn't have any trouble with its mana base, dude. It's crazy. Next up, we're putting in Clever Concealment. It is 2 and a white for an instant that has Convoke, and it says any number of target non-land permanents you control phase out. So, just a little protection. Someone tries to board wipe you. Nah. Speaking of board wipes, we're throwing in one that I think is fantastic. White Sun's Twilight. It is X white and a white for a sorcery. It says you gain X life, you create X 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature tokens with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block. If X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. This card is great. You get the board wipe, you get to make 1/1s that can then help cast more things with Convoke. Maybe you kill your opponents with Infect at some point. Who knows, dude? This is such a versatile card.
Yeah, man. If you get X over 5, you're basically just wiping the board and fixing your mana at the same time because your deck is just all about Convoke.
It's great. And when you have all those tokens, a little bit of a win con I found was Halo Fountain, 2 and a white for an artifact. You can pay a white, tap it, untap a tapped creature you control, create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. You can also pay 2 white and tap it, untap 2 tapped creatures you control, draw a card, and then you can pay 5 white and tap it. Untap 15 tapped creatures you control, you win the game. So you make a bunch of tokens, you tap them all for a convoke cost, and then you can just do this, untap 15 of them if you have it, and win the game, dude.
Yeah. Halo Fountain always seems to go in every single one of my tokens matter decks that runs white. It is a fantastic card, being able to untap your stuff. And that win con is just bonus.
That's what I was say. You're right. The win con is kind of icing on the cake because the other 2 modes on this card are very relevant in the deck as well. So this is a great card.
I love it. All right, we saw a bunch of cool spells so far in the deck. Did you do anything to the land base?
I did in these 3 color decks. I tend to kind of go through and whenever I see a land that says tapped, I like to, if I can, change it for a land that does not come in tapped. So that's what I'm doing. We're grabbing the 3 bond lands, Sea of Clouds, Spectator Seating, and Training Center. They all enter the battlefield tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents, which you should always have. And they tap for the colors you need. So Sea of Clouds is white and a blue, Spectator Seating is a red and a white, and Training Center is a blue and a red.
Yeah, those are all fantastic cards. I do the same thing every time I build a deck. These are the most important cards that go into the deck.
Very much so.
All right, is that all of your additions?
That's all of them, bud.
Nice. All right, so let's get to the harder part. I know you love adding cards, we all do, but we have to make room for them. So what are we taking out?
We're going to cut some stuff. First on the chopping block is Angel of Finality. 3 and a white for a 3/4 angel. Got flying. It says when Angel of Finality enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. That's pretty cool. Doesn't really have anything that we care about though. Doesn't have convoke. It's a one-time thing. I'm just not too high on this card, so I cut it.
It makes sense. It doesn't really do anything that your deck wants to do.
Yeah. Flight of Equinox. It is 7 and a white for a 4/5 human knight. They have convoke and they have flying. Now this does have convoke, but it literally just has flying. This seemed like a very vanilla card almost to me, and I didn't really want it in there.
Yeah, and if you get this in your opening hand, it's still way too expensive to cast.
It's a waste, dude. Yeah, it sucks. The next we're getting rid of is Duergar Hedge Mage. It is 2 and a hybrid red or white for a 2/2 Dwarf Shaman. They say when it enters the battlefield, if you control 2 or more mountains, you can destroy a target artifact. It also says when it enters the battlefield, if you control 2 or more planes, you may destroy an enchantment. That's cool removal, but other than that, I just don't think we need it in this deck, so I cut it. The next one is Cloud of Fairies. It's 1 and a blue for a 1/1 fairy with flying, and it says when it enters the battlefield, you may untap 2 lands. That's cool if you have mana problems, but this deck has none of those. All this is doing is basically making you a 1/1 with flying. You don't need it. I cut it. Another one is Banisher Priest. 1 and a white for a 2/2 human cleric. It says when it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until Banisher Priest leaves the battlefield. All they have to do is remove it, they get the card back. Not that good.
Yeah, there's better removal out there.
Yes, sir. Another one is Spirited Companion. 1 and a white for a 1/1 dog. It says when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. That's cool card draw for one time, and then I guess it can tap, but doesn't seem like it does enough for me, so I cut it.
Yeah, just drawing a card one time is just not that great in EDH. So, looks like that's all the creatures. What else are we taking out?
I'm gonna get rid of some strange sorceries in this deck. First up is Ren's Resolve. 1 and a red for a sorcery that says exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. I mean, that's a cool card, but I don't know what it is doing in this deck. I don't think we really need that at all, so I cut it. Another one is Migratory Route. 3 and a white and a blue for a sorcery that says create 4 1/1 white bird creature tokens with flying. It also has basic land cycling for 2. 5 mana just for 1 time to create the 4 1/1s. You saw in my additions that we have creatures, so we have permanents that will do very similar things that will last a lot longer. Just didn't seem like a great card.
Yeah, your other way to make tokens seems way better than this one
Much,
card.
much better, correct, yeah.
All right, I get why you'd cut those sorceries out. What else are we taking out?
Yeah, we're gonna get rid of the Deluxe Dragster. 4 and a blue for a 4/3 vehicle. It says it can't be blocked except by vehicles. It also says when it deals combat damage to a player, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from that player's graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that spell would be put into a graveyard, exile it instead. Got a crew of 2. That seems interesting, but what if your opponent has nothing in there? Then it's just a card that you're attacking for 4? I mean, I don't know. I think the things that I'm adding are better.
It just kind of goes away from what you're trying to do as well, which is basically convoke, and this takes away your convoke creatures because they need to tap down to crew this. So,
That is another great point.
all right, I'm looking at the next group of cards here. I see that you're not a fan of plane chase either.
I don't think any of us here really are a fan. I get it could be fun, but for the style of games that we all play, we don't really do any of that. So yeah, I cut everything that reference plane chase. So that being Path of the Ghost Hunter, X1 and a white for a sorcery that says create X11 white spirit creature tokens with flying. It also says starting with you, each player votes for Planeswalk or Chaos. I can stop reading right there because it says Planeswalk or Chaos. So I cut it up. Another one is Fractured Power Stone. It is 2 mana for an artifact. You can tap it for a colorless. You can also tap it to roll a planar die, which means nothing. So we're gonna cut it. And lastly, we're getting rid of Ichor Elixir for 4 mana. It's an artifact that says if you would roll 1 or more planar die, and I'll stop reading because we don't care about planar die. It does tap for 2 mana, but other than that, planar, I don't really care.
Yeah, it's an expensive mana rock
It's an
without the
expensive
other
soul
ability.
ring. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I get it. You cut out all the plane chase cards. I did too. Steven did too. David did too. What? We added some lands. What are we getting rid of as far as the land base?
The lands started out pretty high in my opinion. So this deck comes out of the box with 39 lands, and I don't think it needs that many. So first of all, we added 3 bond lands. So I'm getting rid of the 3 temples that come in this deck, being Temple of Epiphany, Temple of Enlightenment, Temple of Triumph. They all come in tapped. They scry 1 for you, and they tap for their respective colors. Epiphany is blue red, Enlightenment white blue, Triumph red white. They're basically just worse versions of the bond that I threw in. And like I said, this deck out of the box came with 39, and we're going to bring that number down to 37. So we're cutting 2 more land, being Rogue's Passage and Terramorphic Expanse. Rogue's Passage just seems very out of place in this deck because it cares about 1 creature getting unblockable, but this deck is more of a token, almost go wide strategy. So I don't think we need to just have 1 creature be unblocked. So I cut it. And then Terramorphic Expanse, very slow fetch that we don't need, so I cut it.
Yeah, I get those cuts. I do usually I cut the temples as well. But yeah, is that it?
That's it, dude. That's the Convoke deck. I love it.
That's your convoke deck. Okay, here's the question for you, Shane. We've given you $100 to make this deck hum. What is the price of the cards you added?
Well, I saved everyone $4 because this price at the time of recording is $96.29.
Wow, good job.
Yeah,
Just
thank you.
shy of 100.
Thank you, thank you.
You got anything else to add to let the people know how this deck kind of plays?
I do think even if you switch the commanders back, this deck should function fairly similar. I just like the idea of Saint Traft tapping on tapping, tapping on tapping, getting a bunch of tokens seemed fun. But if you do have a hankering to play with the other commander, throw her in. Should have a lot of fun with her too.
All right. So, if you guys wanted to see Shane's deck in full, check the description where you'll find the link to the Mox field. His whole deck is there. Go ahead and build it. Try it out yourself. Play test it on Mox field if you want as well. While you're in the description, you'll find links to our social media accounts. That's Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. That's at Guys at Magic for each one. Also, like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We are coming out with all of the $100 upgrades for each one of these precons for March of the Machine, and $300 upgrades for them as well. Don't want to miss them. And until the next video, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Bye-bye.